Hello everyone, this is Dr. Shijun Wang. In today's video, I'm going to talk about how to pick a ideal piano for you or for your kids to practice on. Um, this would be probably the last episode of the piano basics. Next week, I will start a tour and I will visit 3 different states and play concerts and teach master classes. So I will not be able to update. I probably will return to the weekly updates in March. And when I return, I will start the routine of doing a specific piece again. What's in my mind now is probably I will do the 4 Schubert Impromptu, Opus 90. I will again very deeply analyze and teach you how to practice these pieces. But today is the last episode. And this really, many friends on YouTube asked me, how do I pick the best piano for my kids? And I have a budget of how much money, then what should I buy for a piano? So here I want to share some of my knowledge on picking the ideal piano or the right piano within your price range. First of all, many people probably have heard the story of how a violin is, the older the better, and then if you hold on to it for a while, the value goes up. Are those myth or real stories? Yeah, many of those stories are true. In fact, most violin made in Italy 200 years ago, they're worth millions of dollars. And for people who owns those or organizations who owns those, they lend it to very famous players. So if you see a famous violinist playing a violin that sounds fantastic, they don't really own the violin in many cases. An organization asks them to play, and because it's a belief that if you put the violin sitting there in a storage, the value probably will not go up. But then if you keep playing on it, yeah, the more you play, the better it gets. Is that the same case for piano? I don't think so. The newer, the better, right? If you buy a piano that was made in 2022 with the same price, with something exactly the same brand that was made 2 years ago, yeah, go for the newer one. But how do we choose that if we should buy one? Okay, number one rule, we have to check the soundboard, yeah, and then the frames. The soundboard, sometimes if it cracks, then there is no fix, right? You cannot fix the soundboard. It's the same thing as like buying a house. The soundboard is the location. Yeah, that's one thing you cannot change, right? If you don't like the color of the wallpaper, you can change it. If you don't like the tiles, you can change it to hardwood floor. But location, you can never change. You cannot move the house. That is the soundboard. Make sure there are no cracks. Make sure the bridge has no cracks. Yeah, make sure the frame, and usually it's hard for a frame, the harp of the piano frame, the steel frame to be broken, right? Unless you hit it with a hammer. But do check it. Yeah, see if there are any damages. Because if it's something you really like, if the look is great, if it's something you inherited from somebody, it means something special to you, and you still want to practice on it, the keyboard, the action, you can totally replace it. All the strings, well, of course, with I don't know, $3,000, $5,000, you can replace everything inside. Yeah, but soundboard you cannot replace. But of course, usually if you're buying a piano for your kids to practice on, you don't want to replace or spend thousands of dollars to replace all that. Yeah. So, what's a good action? First of all, you need to make sure the action is somehow deep, and also it's not super light. Yeah, it's not so light that if you blow some air, it will go down. Yeah, it's heavy. Why is that? And I remember I know when I was studying at Juilliard, I know which practice room has the heaviest action. The piano has the heaviest action. Um, because if you practice on a very heavy action, then if you go perform on the stage and then you play on a piano you totally have never played before, if the piano is lighter, great, you take less effort. But if it's more heavy, then you're used to the heavy actions. Yeah, and there's another thing to it. For a heavier action, you have more layers of possibilities. Yeah, you can control the volume better. You can control the tone better. Yeah, imagine if the piano action is so light, if you play it very light, it sounds the same. If you hit it very hard, it sounds the same. It's almost like a light switch, only on and off. Yeah, but a more expensive one or a fancier one has layers. You can dim down or you can make it brighter gradually. That's what you want with your actions. And of course, you have to check the escape. Yeah, you have to check if the keyboard comes up very fast. Yeah, so you can play fast repeated notes. Yeah, some pianos, if the action is dull, then it returns very slowly. Then really it affects the technique. Um, and this has some things to do with the maintenance of the piano. Yeah, what you want is for the piano to be staying in this under the same temperature and humidity. Yeah, uh, no matter how fancy the piano is, if the Fazioli or Steinway or Bessendorf, Dorfer or Bechstein, yeah, I've played all of them. They're top grade. They're like, the fancy car brand, but they're made by wood. Yeah, wood is affected by humidity and temperature. Yeah, I remember one summer, our school had some problem with the AC. So for 2 weeks, the AC was off. When we returned, the piano tuner, the piano technician called us saying all of the pianos are out of tune, just after 2 months. Yeah, because then suddenly I guess Utah summer is super hot, and because of there's no windows, then I guess it's very the temperature raises, then the wood is swollen, and then when the temperature finally cools down, it doesn't go back to where it was, right? Of course, it shrinks a little, but not to the original form. So that's something I want to check if the piano was maintained with very steady humidity and then temperature. You want to also check the pedal. The pedal is the same thing. You want the pedal to have many layers. Yeah, almost like the pedal of the gas on your car. It's not only switch on, switch off. Yeah, you can control how deep it goes. Yeah, of course, when it's all the way to the bottom, this is all the way to the bottom. But you can also control it to this is 30%. Yeah, and this is barely just maybe 10%. Yeah, so you want to try if the pedal is responsive and also if the pedal it has many layers. And finally, you want to also check the hammer. Yeah, if you see the hammer has very deep and harsh grooves, that means the piano has been practiced on for a long time. It probably the hammer doesn't have a lot of life in it. Yeah, the same thing goes with checking if the brake of the car has been worn out. But those are fixable. You can replace the hammer. You can also ask the piano technician with the needle, do some magic, and they can make sure the tone is better after they voice the hammer. But that's something you can see if it's new piano or not. And of course, many people talk about the tone has to be rounded. Yes, but that's a combination of how you play, a combination of the price range of the piano. Of course, you don't want the piano to sound very aggressive, but I mean, even on this very nice piano, if I hit, the piano sound is very unpleasant. Okay, but check the soundboard, check if the piano hammer still have a lot of life. Yeah, if it doesn't have any groove, then that's fantastic. It's perfect condition. And check if the keyboards are all the keys are responsive. But how much should I spend? Um, I think like Japanese cars, um, or any new car, right? If you drive it out from the dealership and if you want to sell it the next day, it's probably $2,000 less than the purchase price. So I would not buy brand new piano from dealership, right? I mean, probably the dealership will hate me, but really that's how I buy my cars. I never buy brand new cars. I always buy something that is only 2 years old or 1 year old. For piano, I never bought. I mean, it's not like I buy piano every day, but the piano I own, it was a used one, but it was a used piano, but it was rarely used. Yeah, I could tell because the hammer was really brand new. Um, and how much should I spend? I think if a kid is starting to learn piano, it's not professional yet, it doesn't practice 4 hours a day, I think a good or a used Yamaha or Kawai would do the job. And I think for a used Yamaha upright, something around $5,000 sounds about right. Of course, it has to be well maintained, but a brand new upright Yamaha probably will cost around 10 grand. And if your kids want to be professional pianists, uh, I think you have to, if possible, get the kid a grand piano. Yeah, because the way the sound vibrates, the keys vibrates, it's totally different with upright. It gives a wider range and imagination of tone colors. And again, if you buy a used Yamaha, it's probably around 12 grand, 15 grand if it's really 2 year old or 1 year old. Um, but then it's really a good investment. It's something worth spending if the kid is very, very serious on learning the piano. And don't worry about buying Steinways, they're very, very expensive. If a kid wants to be professional pianist, yeah, here at Weber State we have 7-foot Steinways for kids to practice on. And I know, in fact, Juilliard is also all Steinway school. Many universities in the US are all Steinway schools. And even though some are not all Steinway schools, they have Steinway pianos for students to practice on. So, I mean, unless to spend 80 grand is nothing for your family, then buy something Japanese made with lower than $15,000. Is a good investment. Okay, thank you for your support, and this is the last episode of Piano Basics. When I return in March, I will start teaching the Schubert Impromptus, Opus 90. Thank you for your support. See you in March.